Welcome back to our little series of watching Dave Van Slyke restore a vintage, really cool post drill that came from Cy Swan to Ken Jordan to me and finally to Dave. The first video was just an overview, and it left huge blanks in the story and the account of how he made the magic happen. So in this video, you're going to see more of the details about mold and pattern making, modern and old school casting materials and techniques. And keep in mind that as you're watching this, you're seeing the synthesis and a very seamless demonstration of several different crafts and trades, not to mention a masterclass in patience and perseverance, as well as the cost-benefit considerations of when to make and when to buy new.
As we continue the restoration, I put the original drive shaft back in, but as you can see, it's kind of subpar. So the answer is pretty obvious. We call it McMaster car, and we get a new 1.1/8" drive shaft. That, the good news is, fits really nice. The bad news is, it fits really nice. We got quite a bit of play here in the babbitt, so we're going to have to re-pour the babbitt bearings on that, and that's going to be the next step on this project. Well, here's the assembly that we have so far, and everything's functional. We had to assemble it to this point to find out what was missing, and in fact, I'll zoom in here, this particular gear was missing, so we had to find the pitch and the diameter. We ordered one up and it fit perfect. However, the original was all a one-piece casting, so Ken and I made this part here that creates an eccentric that drives all this linkage up here to power feed the mandrel on this thing. So we have all new modern bolts in here, just mocking up what the sizes are. We're going to be ordering up some square head bolts to keep it coherent age-wise.
So Dave is a sucker for neat old equipment, but it pays off at a moment like this because he could go out to the burial grounds and cannibalize some babbitt bearings from other obsolete pieces of gear, bring them back in, use a cutting torch, just a garden variety oxyacetylene cutting torch, to melt the babbitt out into some molds, a mold specifically for creating those little ingots, and have a nice fresh start with the material he needs to bring the drill back to life.
This is missing a knob that controls all this linkage in here for the eccentric that runs the power feed on this. And according to the parts diagram I have, this is the identical knob that we need to cast. Now this is cast iron, and for our purposes we don't need that. We're going to cast this in aluminum because it's much easier to work with. Now in casting, the rule of thumb is I could use this as a form to cast the aluminum, but if you cast off of cast iron, your finish gets rougher and rougher. So I'm going to make this in a form with urethane. This is kind of a cool knob. I may use this for other projects down the road, but it's also going to make a smoother, better finish for when we're all said and done. We made a form for this part out of melamine. We basically hot glue this. YouTube has lots of information how to do this, and this is going to be the form that we're going to pour this product from Smooth on. This is a silicone rubber compound. You mix 1-to-1 ratio in doing this to cast this part. Now I want to have this off of the bottom so I get some material under there. So the way I'm going to accomplish this is just put a little wood bridge here to about there. Now that has that just set off the bottom a little bit because I don't want to use extra material if I don't have to. And we'll be casting our rubber material into that in just a few moments. So this product is mixed 1-to-1 by weight or by volume. I'm going to do it by weight. I've calculated that I'm going to need about 300 grams of product. I sprayed both the part and the form with this Man Ease Release 200 so that things won't disbehave. And so we're just ready to start mixing this up. So we'll be going for about 150 grams, obviously, of part A. Actually, I'm starting with part B. Oh, well. And we'll follow up with part A. And we'll do 150 with that one as well. Okay, we'll give this a thorough mix. Now we wait for it to dry. Got good coverage all the way around. That's what I wanted to see. So just like we cast the knob, we're going to cast this part, shooting for about 200 grams. See how much material this displaces. Just the right amount. There we go. The proper time is past for curing, so we're going to go ahead and demold these and see if things came out the way that we hoped. There. So what we have is just a chunk of silicone. And there we are. So now we will pour our urethane in here. That'll be the next step, and that'll harden up, and we'll see how that comes out. For this step in our casting, we're going to be replicating this part here, just the bottom section. I'm going to be making 2 castings of this, and we'll explain why that is down the road here a ways. The product I'm going to be using for this is also a smooth-on product called Smooth Cast Onyx. It's a urethane. It is, again, a 1-to-1 ratio mixture, and it's really fast setting. This is the quick set, and it sets up really hard. And for this application, for making a pattern, is going to be the right product. I calculated I need about 50 grams, so I'm going to push that up to about 60. No reason not to, so we're going to go 30 and 30 here. Bring this up to 60. So we mix this up. It starts to heat up almost immediately. It's a chemical process. Straight in. Yeah, 60 is a little heavy. I think 50 would have been better. So it's time to cast this part. This was our original that we made a silicone mold around in order to make a pattern for this. So I've calculated we need about 140 grams of the onyx material. Yeah, that was just about perfect. I have just a little bit in the bottom. And again, wait for that to cure. So it's already time to demold our first part we did. And as you can see, this is already very hard. Now, one thing you'll notice is I went ahead and put the form material back around this because I wanted to keep the structural integrity of this part intact, because dimensionally that's going to mean something. The shape doesn't have to be exact, but it needs to be pretty close for future work here. So let's demold this and see how this came out. See if it's success or other. And I judge that a success. So what we've done is we've created an exact replication of this part. I can show all the different little details. Little casting error right there shows up in this outside of that casting. It's very, very accurate. And we're going to need this accuracy very shortly. Well, this one too has set up very hard. Let's demold this and see how this first casting came out. See if we're happy with it or not. And there we go. So now we have a urethane copy of this part here. Now, I can see my mold. Probably can't see this, it's all black, but this part failed a little bit in my molding. Probably had an air bubble there. So I'm actually gonna have to machine that out of there to come up with the same concave surface that I want out of this. Not a big deal. This is a machinable product when it's all said and done. But overall, I think we're on the right path to get where we need to be with making some aluminum parts. This part attaches to the drill and has a removable handle that you crank, and this bevel gear runs another gear that runs the table up and down for adjustment. We don't have this handle, so I have to make one somehow. What I do have out of my collection of future projects is an old Apple cider press that has this handle. It's a great shape, it's a great size. The challenge is that it has a square hole for a shaft, but it's 3/4 inch, and this is 1 inch. So I'm going to use this as the basis of a casting, but I'm going to modify the head. And then I have to create a core box through this, and we'll talk about that down the road. So one of the reasons that I did this casting here, and I did 2 of them, one of them was used for this purpose, to create the parts for a core box. Now I had to determine, this is tapered, and I determined it's a 1 degree taper on both sides. So in essence, I just used this to form up what's going to be a core box for making a core for casting. That's the only purpose that that had. So when it's all said and done, I'll have a nice sand core that will work with our casting to make this handle. Well, here's the progress on the modification of this. I still have to Bondo in these transition parts, but the overall footprint has been enlarged. And now it gives us the basis to make a pattern out of this. Now, we did this casting here because I needed to have a replication of this tapered shaft that I could manage. And so this goes right up to the shoulder, which is really where the stopping point is for the back of the handle. It's going to go there and it's going to stop when this is hollowed out and it goes on there. So this gave us the ability to make the core box that we're going to use to make our sodium silicate and sand core for our casting. What this also did, it gave us the ability to make up a wooden elongated shaft with the same taper all the way through. So it gave me in essence some ears on the side of this casting pattern so that the core can fit in that slot there. So this was fitted inside the core box very tightly, so it's the same dimension. And the only thing that's missing is this intersection dimensionally that we don't need. So that creates a challenge in how to glue this up, how to get this indexed on here so that both sides line up in the proper orientation. So this is going to work with this shaft when it's all said and done. The only really way to accomplish that is making a jig, an alignment jig. So I took some scraps from around the shop, made this beautiful piece of workmanship here, fine woodworking. And I jigged it up in such a way that I can put my blocks in here and get everything tight against the jig and epoxy this on here. So when it's all dry, I'll have the proper ears on this that will make my pattern for my casting.
The decision to cast the missing pieces with aluminum instead of steel is a good one, because aluminum melts at around 1220 degrees or so, but steel's melting point is more than twice that amount, which makes it much, much, much trickier to work with and, frankly, dangerous.
So now it's wait time. I gotta spin around here and show you the supervisor.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows this guy. Yeah, looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. Oh yeah. I think we're successful, Ken.
Okay.
Well, here's how the casting came out. I'm very pleased with this overall. Got it cleaned up. I drilled through and tapped this for its purpose. I've got a few little air holes here and there that I'm going to fill with some filler before I paint this, but overall, compared to the original part, I think it's just about spot on for look. So I'm very pleased how this came out, and it's going to serve a good purpose for me.
As you watch Dave manufacturing these replacement parts, keep in mind that he drew from several sources: an identical knob from the same drill, a crank handle from a cider press, a flywheel from a pump handle blacksmith forge, as well as new pieces from McMaster Car and other online suppliers. You know, desperate times, desperate measures, but the adaptation of the cider press handle was especially cool, and I just have to say, pretty much brilliant.
Okay, wait for that to cool, see how it looks when it's done. Okay, I've got the shaft out, and it looks like we got good coverage all the way around. And now we're ready to do the top section. Well, this is the motor we're going to use to power the drill. It's a repulsion start induction single phase motor, Century. Serial number says it's a 1949 model. and had the guys at the motor shop work it over, and it's in good working condition. The challenge with this is the bushings are not really designed for side pressure, so I can't directly drive the belt with this. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to run a side shaft with a coupler. So this will couple to the motor, then through 2 Babbitt bearings with our our flat belt pulley that'll go up the counter shaft. So today we're going to pour these Babbitt bearings. For the tops, I took an old housing as a donor just so I could set the cap in here and orient it where I want. So I got my shaft all smoked up. I have a keyway running through here, so I went ahead and dammed up the keyway. I don't anticipate getting Babbitt in there, but if I do, I don't want to mess with it. So collars are on, got the damming material around here. So now we're ready to pour the top caps, and we'll have a complete bearing set for each side. Well, we're getting ready to try to make this handle today. There's the form that, or the pattern that came out. It was all done. So go through the steps here and see if we can come up with a successful handle. Well, here's how the casting came out. I'm very pleased with it. I've been working on cleaning it up a little bit, put it back, show what happened here. Had a little blowout on the side here, but we were able to get that off there pretty easy. I'll put the pattern back in to show what happened here, what this does. So that's the original pattern. This is the core print that we had for the core in order to leave the hollow space for the tool itself. So that's where we are. We're going to keep working on finishing that up. Well, we've got this prime now ready for final painting. Let's talk about paint for a minute. I found that machine parts like this do much better with a good spray paint. The Van Sickle tractor paint gloss black is just excellent. It lays down really nice. It has a heavy body to it. Just a great paint. But any good commercial enamel will work. But for casting, I really found that hand painting works out a lot better. You know, you don't have to deal with the overspray of the whole thing. I use the Rust-Oleum protective enamel oil base and lays down super well on a cast surface like this. The original color on this was black. Most machine colors back in 1908 were black. Some gray, you know. But this was black, and it had gold lettering highlights here that we're going to go back around and deal with that. We'll have another video on that. But it's time to lay down some black paint. So there's different ways of doing lettering. The easiest way, and I've done this in the past, is to take your highlight color, in this case it was gold, we're going to go back with the gold, and just hit the very tops of the raised section of this casting. And that looks just great. Not a problem with that at all. However, that's not how this was done. We have little bits and pieces before I painted this that I could see what they did, and they actually had the gold color around the full dimension of the raised letter. So that's what we're going to do. I would call this overpainting. We're going to come in here with a gold paint. I did this section back here already. So are these letters, and we come all the way to the full dimension of this, all the way around down to the flat surface, and let it dry. And then we'll come back in with our black paint with a sharp small brush, and we'll cut in next to that to define our letter. When it's all done, we're going to have a three-dimensional letter that really pops off the face. And again, that was how it was done originally. That's how we're going to do it now.
As I watch these videos of Dave doing this to this beautiful old drill, it is confirmed in my heart over and over that it was the right thing to do to send this pile of parts home with this man. And it's confirmed in my heart again that not everything we do has to be done for money. Now, life requires us to make money and find a way to support ourselves and our loved ones and be a responsible citizen and make a contribution. Yes, 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 all true. And it's easy to get caught up in that and feel like it's the only important thing, isn't it? And then I watch Dave doing this, and it's clear that he's doing it because he loves doing this. And it's the only explanation for why some people do things at a very high level. Because if we're doing it for money, we do it well enough to make the money. But if we do it because we either love doing it or we're doing it for someone that we love, we do it way better. Everything's elevated when we are doing it for love and for a longer view than the paradigm that accompanies simply turning it into dollars. Anyway, it's been an inspiration to me to watch Dave wade into this project and take it to completion. And in the next video, you're going to get to see this thing in its glory, fully restored in his shop. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.